2,000 years of time. Archbishop Samuel took the old scrolls that he had bought from the Bedouin boys and put them in his library. He carefully unrolled a little of each one, but he could not read them. They were written in Hebrew, and he was not a Hebrew scholar. One day he heard that a famous scholar of the Bible, Father van der Vloog from Holland, was staying at one of the monasteries in Jerusalem. Archbishop Samuel invited the visitor to come and inspect the scrolls. When Father van der Vloog heard the story of the Bedouin boys, he nodded. "Yes, I know that Bedouin tribe, but show me your scrolls." As the Dutch priest carefully unrolled the parchment, he ran his hands over the dusty letters. With his magnifying glass, he studied line after line. After what seemed a long time to the archbishop, the priest looked up. His face wore a puzzled expression. "Well," Samuel spoke, "have you an answer, Father?" "This is a copy of the book of Isaiah. If it is what it seems to be, it would be the oldest copy ever found." "The book of Isaiah," Father van der Vloog exclaimed Archbishop breathlessly, moving his chair closer to the table. "The complete book, too." Father van der Vloog laid down his magnifying glass. "I am at a loss to know what to think. Of course, I suspect forgery. It is common for men to make old-looking copies of the books of the Bible and sell them at outrageous prices. The Bedouin boys said that they found them in a cave near the Dead Sea," the archbishop exclaimed. "I can't help but believe them. Merchant Isaiah was taken to the cave by the boys and explored it. But the story seems to fit, okay? Naturally, they would want it to fit. It obviously impresses the buyer of the manuscripts." Van der Vloog shrugged his shoulders. "Some folks would go to any length to make a dishonest penny. A visit to the cave was probably part of the scheme." The Dutch scholar stood to his feet as though to go. "But I won't pass judgment until I am sure. There is one chance in a million that these are genuine ancient scrolls." After his visitor had left, Archbishop Samuel rolled the Isaiah scroll together and wrapped it securely. He placed it on the library shelf. "One chance in a million," he said to himself. "No one seems to think the scrolls are worth anything, and I'm beginning to doubt it myself. The Bedouins seem sincere, but sincerity is a hard thing to judge." He closed the door of the library behind him. "I may as well consider the purchase of the scrolls as bad business and forget about it." But Samuel could not forget about it. Late that night he called a scholar friend of his, a member of his church, and a man whose judgment was greatly respected. "I could not rest tonight, Stephen, until I told you that Father van der Vloog has identified the large scroll as the complete book of Isaiah." "Rubbish!" exclaimed the voice at the other end of the wire. "What if it is the complete book of Isaiah and written in Hebrew? That proves nothing from my viewpoint. You must remember, Father Samuel, that I am an authority on the matter of the manuscripts." "You are an authority on Arabic history, but not in Hebrew writings," the archbishop mildly rebuked his friend. "Well, you asked me for my opinion, and I've given it to you. I consider these scrolls to be worthless. Now why don't you just forget about them and try to get some rest?" Father van der Vloog seemed to feel that they may be ancient. "At least he is not passing final judgment on them," the archbishop said in his defense. "Didn't he also indicate that they were probably forgeries? The scholar world will laugh and ridicule you if you declare that you have a 2,000-year-old copy of Isaiah. There is no such book in existence. Remember, we must protect the reputation of our church." "Yes, Stephen, I understand. I shall not mention the matter again. Perhaps I have been too eager. Good night." Although he put the scrolls out of sight, he could not forget them. One evening, the archbishop walked in the monastery gardens with one of the monks, a trusted friend. named Somi. "You've not forgotten the scrolls, Father Samuel," the monk said. "No, Somi, but the more help I try to get, the more I'm laughed at. You've been brave to stand alone in your opinions, Father. I'm only asking for proof. Is that unreasonable? If the scroll of Isaiah is genuine, I want to know. If this is an ancient copy of the book of Isaiah, it must not be in the monastery unread." The archbishop walked with bowed head. "Do you have any idea where we can find help in settling this matter?" "Not in the least," Archbishop Samuel answered his friend. "I've tried many authorities, Stephen Vanderplug. They all doubt. "I have an idea," said the monk, stopping with and holding up his hand. "Why don't you talk with the men in the American School of Oriental Research, right here in Jerusalem?" "Perhaps," the archbishop replied, nodding his head, "but I'm not sure that I should reveal how these scrolls came into our possession. If we mention the Bedouins, the American scholars will put up a howl of fraud. I wish there was some way of... I have another suggestion. We can simply tell the Americans that in recataloging the library, we have found 5 scrolls written in Old Hebrew, and we need their expert advice in identifying them. And the Isaiah scroll will be among them," added Samuel, quite pleased with the plan. "I will leave all arrangements with you, but remember, they must never know how these scrolls came into our possession." When Somi telephoned the American school, Dr. John Trevor, one of the directors, invited him to bring the scrolls to the school the next day. The American greeted Somi pleasantly when he arrived. "Come into the library," he said. "I am anxious to see the scrolls that you have brought. You said that these are written in Old Hebrew?" Dr. Trevor began to unwrap one of the scrolls, which Somi had laid on the table. "I am surprised to hear that they are in Hebrew, since your monastery seems to be interested only in Syriac writings. The Hebrew and Syriac writings are very much alike, and can be quite confusing," the monk suggested. "Alike, yes, but different enough not to be confused by a scholar." Dr. Trevor spoke quickly and looked at the monk. "Do you have any idea how long these scrolls have been in your library?" Somi was uneasy as he tried to evade answering. "I cannot tell exactly, but surely you must have some idea. 2, 3, 400 years? You see, if we had some idea when the monastery had obtained the scrolls, we would have a starting point for our investigation." Somi looked down for a moment. "I have a confession to make," he burst out. "I have not told you all the truth. As a matter of fact, they came into our hands only a few months ago. Archbishop Samuel purchased them from 2 Bedouins who said they found them in a cave near the Dead Sea. He believed their story and felt that these scrolls are of great value. Several scholars he has shown them to say that they are forgeries. The Archbishop is fearful of ridicule. What I have said was meant only for his protection. Most interesting. This will help us. You too feel that they are forgeries, sir?" Somi inquired as he rose to go. "No, no," said Trevor, holding out his hand to detain the monk. "These scrolls themselves will tell us whether or not they are genuine. They will be our only proof." Trevor stepped to the table and arranged the scrolls. He picked up the Isaiah scroll. "This large one seems to be the best preserved." "Why not look at it first?" the monk suggested eagerly. "May I copy some lines from it?" Trevor asked. "You have my permission," Somi answered. Trevor carefully opened the scroll and began to copy, but only for a few minutes. He looked up in astonishment at Somi, who was leaning over his shoulder, and exclaimed, "Did you know that these verses are from Isaiah?" "Yes, Father Vanderplug told us." Trevor laid down his pen. "I want to make a comparison." He went to the far end of the long room and drew out several Kodachrome slides from a file. As he adjusted the projector, which stood on a stand, he exclaimed, "Oh, on these slides, which I have prepared, are several old forms of Hebrew writing. I want to compare them with the scroll of Isaiah." One by one, the slides flashed on the screen. Somi saw that Trevor was jotting down notes on his paper. Then the scholar took the copy he had just made from the Isaiah scroll and compared it with the slide. After a long pause, he spoke. Incredible. I cannot believe my eyes. Somi dared not answer for fear he would disturb the scholar. Do you see the writing on the screen? Trevor went on. It is from the Nash Papyrus, the oldest form of Hebrew writing known. The writing on this Hebrew scroll of yours is almost identical with it. Tell me, how old is this Noah papyrus? Somi asked. Do you think that this Isaiah scroll was written about the same time? Is that what you believe, sir? Let us not jump to conclusions, Trevor hastened to say. The Nash Papyrus is about 2,000 years old, but it will take hours, even days of study to answer your question. I will say that if these writings are forgery, they are nearly perfect ones. Every indication tells me that they are genuine. And if they are genuine, Trevor paused, if they are genuine, this is the greatest biblical discovery in modern times. Somi touched the scroll with reverence. Sir, would the writing on this scroll be of interest to the men in America who are working on biblical manuscripts? You mean the men who are working on the Revised Standard Version of the Bible? Yes, they are translating Isaiah soon, I understand. It is remarkable, Trevor said. It has been 2 years since they completed the New Testament, and now they are well started on the Old Testament. It seems providential that the scroll has been discovered just when it can be of help to them. I will photograph parts of this scroll at once and send it to the scholars in America, who are very expert in giving the proper dates to the old Hebrew manuscript. Trevor said, and in a few weeks we will have their answer. The monk Somi hurried back to the Syrian Orthodox monastery of St. Mark in the heart of Old Jerusalem. As he passed through the streets, he murmured to himself, 2,000 years. This very scroll may have been in Jerusalem when Jesus was here. His hands could have touched it. It is a miracle that God has performed to bring us a book so priceless. In a few weeks, this word came back from the Bible scholars in America. Our heartiest congratulations on the greatest manuscript discovery of modern times. There is no doubt in our minds that the script is older than that of the Nash Papyrus. We think the date would be around 100 BC. What an incredible find. Archbishop Samuel was silent when he read the letter. For this moment he had worked and prayed. He turned to Trevor, who had brought the letter to him, and asked, what does this discovery mean? It means that we have found a manuscript that is the closest to the prophet Isaiah's own handwriting of anything that has ever been found. It is a miracle. This is the story of the Bible. Whether the Bible is read in German, Greek, Latin, English, or in one of the other 1,000 languages in which it has been printed, it is God's Word, kept by the miracle of His power. It has been hidden in caves and tombs, buried in desert sands, treasured in ancient libraries where men counted every letter as they copied it. But the story is not finished. Every day, young men and women are struggling to translate the Bible into new languages. They are living in Indian huts on the Amazon, in grass shacks in the South Pacific, and in sod-covered cabins in the far north, learning the languages of the people so that they may give the Bible to them in their own tongue. It is God's Word and His message to the world. William Tyndale's last prayer has been answered many times, for not only have the King's eyes been opened, but the eyes of the whole world are opening to the message of the Bible.